Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our first part in our new training webinar series. Today we will be going through an introduction to Rentman in the improved interface, so I can show you around what has changed and some new improvements as well, and also show around some of the functionality. So before we get started, we just want to share how this webinar will work and some important details with you. First and foremost is this is, like I said, the first part in our webinar series. So today will be Introduction to Rentman. There are 5 other webinars in this series, and the links will be posted in the chat. So you can actually see the blog post with the links to register and also our support center in case you have any questions. So those links will be in the chat. And then today we're actually going to be, like I said, giving you an introduction to Rentman. So we'll be going through the dashboard, the schedule, showing you how the equipment gets set up and checking the availability. We'll also set up a project together and plan our equipment and crew. Then we'll book everything out of the warehouse and touch on a few financials. Now today is just a brief introduction. The next few webinars will actually do a deep dive into each of these subjects. So there will be a warehousing one, also one on invoicing and financials, so that you can learn a little bit more about each of the subjects. Now, important information on how this webinar will work today. So you are in listen and view only mode, which means you can't speak or turn on your camera, but you can use the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen to ask us questions. I am joined today with my colleagues Parker and Lauren, and they will be helping to answer questions in the Q&A. We will also take some breaks throughout the webinar to go through a few questions, maybe live, and then some of them we may answer through text, and then we may even follow up if there's some deeper questions we need to investigate. But this session is recorded, so if anything happens and you need to quickly run, no problem. We will make sure the recordings are available. They will be available on YouTube, on our blog, and we will also send you an email about 24 hours afterwards with that link to the recording as well. And then, as I mentioned before, you will find the links to the blog and the support center in the chat. You can't use the chat, but you can at least be able to access those 2 resources. Okay, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started and show you around Rentman. Okay, so the first thing that I want to discuss is what exactly Rentman is and why we made some new changes and launched the improved interface. So the first thing is some of you may have seen Rentman before and some of you may still be new. So it could be a mixture. So just in case you're wondering, what exactly does Rentman do for me? Rentman is a tailor-made software for the AV and live event industry. So it helps you find a combination of your equipment, crew, and transport. So planning that, but also communicating that planning, well, that's what Rentman is good at. And then also you have your financial features to quote and invoice your events. So the whole planning process there. Now, like I said, some of you may have seen Rentman before, in our older look. And the reason why we made these changes was we were receiving, quite some feedback about the user experience in Rentman and, the look and feel and the optimization of screen space. So we wanted to make some improvements to be able to optimize that screen space so that you aren't seeing so much in one screen, but also just to make it more user-friendly for you to access. So we are still in beta testing. So as you look around in your own account, you may encounter some weird things happening. And if you do, please let us know. We are working very hard to make sure that this is a seamless, move over into the improved interface. So we do rely on that feedback from you guys. All right, without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing that I want to start with here is your dashboard. So this is an overview of everything that's going on in your account. Previously, in our older look, the dashboard was static. So it was the same for every single user, and you would only see what's coming for the next week. Well, with our new dashboard, you have a lot more flexibility, and you also have can look farther in the future. So for example, you can see here I have a dashboard that I've created for myself. I have some tasks here, and I can even see my tasks that are, up to 2 weeks in the future here. So if I want to be proactive and work ahead of time, I can do that as well. I've got my schedule and also invitations and time registration. So this is really nice view for, say, a crew member that just needs to execute, check their schedule, see what they need to do, and answer their invitations and time registration. But what's new about this dashboard is it can be personalized. So while a crew member may have one view, maybe the financial controller might have a slightly different view. And you can do that by actually adding widgets here from the side. So as I mentioned, this is, you know, we just launched the improved interface, so we are working on adding more and more widgets. You can see we already have quite some on the personal side. We also have some financial widgets, and then we also are creating a better overview of your revenue. Now, if you miss any widgets or you'd love to see something added to Rentman, please let us know because we would like to add more in the future, you know, based on what you'd like to see. But again, each person can come in and personalize their own dashboard there. I could even have multiple dashboards. So this one could be my personal one, but maybe I also wanted to create a financial one with just my revenue overview. So you can create those different dashboards and have those different views. So it's fully customizable and personalized now. All right, so while the dashboard is an overview of everything that's going on, the schedule is how you actually communicate with the crew and what they need to do. So here we can see I actually have some invitations here at the top that I need to answer as a crew member, but down below, this is where you'll see the full schedule and everything that I need to do. Now, I am looking at the full schedule, so it includes projects and also planning. But if I were just a crew member, I might see something slightly more reduced and just see what I need to do as a crew member. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong one. Let's turn off our projects. All right, so as a crew member, I see just actually the jobs that I need to execute, so it's very clear for me. I can actually click on each job and I can see more information about what I need to do as a crew member and what I need to execute. So I can see here that I am planned as a sound technician. I can see the dates and times that I'm planned. I can also see if there's other crew members working with me and their phone number as well. And I can even create documents like packing slips so that I can easily see the equipment that I need to take with me on the event. So again, everything your crew needs to know to execute an event is right here in their personal schedule. And like I said, it is a personal schedule for each individual person. And they can also view this information on the Rentman mobile app. So the mobile app is downloadable on iOS or Android, and your crew can go ahead and view the exact same information on their schedule in their mobile device as well. And then, of course, not only can they see this here in the desktop and in the mobile app, but you can also synchronize this schedule with your own personal calendar. Maybe you use Outlook or Gmail, so you can also synchronize that information fully in the personal schedule. Now, for some of you, you may also be working with a lot of contractors or freelancers. And of course, what's really nice about Rentman is they can actually manage their own availability right here in the software. You'll notice already this large part of the calendar was marked red. Well, I went on vacation, had a nice long vacation there. If I do go on another vacation, what I can do is I can just say, okay, I'm going to be unavailable for these days, and I can go ahead and mark myself as unavailable. And again, it just makes it a lot easier on the crew planner in the business because they will know who is and isn't available and can easily plan without having to have a lot of email or text strings. Okay, so that's the schedule. Let's go ahead and move on to our equipment so that we can go ahead and see what's going on with our equipment here. Now, when you get started with Rentman, of course, you add your entire inventory. You can add that here from the top, or you can import that information. For our more regular users, you know, of course, you can also update this information with an import so that you can keep everything up to date. Here in the equipment module, though, this is where you can quickly check your equipment availability. Maybe you got a phone call from a potential customer. They just want to check what you have available on this date and time. What you can do is you can actually select a equipment item. You can open and close the timeline of availability right here at the top. And you can actually see, okay, is this item available when I need it? Now, just to explain kind of how this timeline of availability works, you will see these two bars here at the top. Now, the first bar is your planning availability. So every single project you plan an item on, it will deduct from this line. So say that you've quoted for 3 events, but maybe only 1 gets confirmed. Regardless, all 3 could be confirmed, so Rentman will deduct it from the planning line. The planning line also takes into account if you've subrented this item or if you have repairs of this item as well, because of course, if something is broken and can't be used, it will deduce from your planning availability. Now, the second bar, however, is actually your warehouse stock, and only confirmed projects will deduct from this line. So for example, you can see I own 4 of this equipment item, but actually I can only use 3 to plan. And that's actually because we do have one in repair and it is broken. So even though there's 4 in the warehouse, only 3 could be used on future projects, and you'll always see that here in the timeline. We'll take a look at the timeline again while we're planning on a project, but I wanted you guys to see how easily you can check these availability times just here in the equipment module. All right, last thing is a lot of you in the old interface may have gotten used to the widget on the side. Well, that's just here under the details. So when I click on the details of an equipment item, I can go ahead and see those details here. I can even lock that with the pen sidebar option. So if I actually just go and click through some equipment items, I can keep that sidebar open. Now, here in the sidebar, you can, of course, see the image of the equipment item, the structure, if it's part of any combinations, your suppliers. So if you need to subrent something, you can go through your suppliers list and give them a call. And then you can also see tasks, notes, and files on the equipment level. So those images are also files here, but anything else like proof of purchase or anything, you can always add files on the equipment level or even the serial number level. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our projects. Here you'll find an overview of all of your projects. For the moment, I'm looking at just the next week, but of course you can tailor this view. So for example, if we wanted to see, let's see, maybe for the whole month of September, let's go ahead and select that. So we can actually see a lot more information just by tailoring our view there. Now you can also use filters. So for example, maybe I only want to see my projects that are confirmed. So I can go ahead and apply a filter there just to see my confirmed projects, the ones I know that will go forward. Now, when you add filters, you can always save them as a preset so that you can quickly see these views later on. You don't have to add custom filters every time. You can select from your saved presets here at the top. All right, now you may be wondering, actually, how do I check information quickly on a project? Well, it's in the same way as with your equipment items. So for example, let's check out the details here of our Soul Train tour. So we can see who the project is for, the customer information, location. We can also see our project progress icons. Now, this is a new feature here in the improved interface. And what's nice about this is it gives you a direct indication of what actions need to be taken in your project. So the person here means that you may need to still plan crew. Our person is turned green, so it means we're good to go, but you may see a yellow or red color, which means that you do need to plan crew. There still are functions that need to be filled. Now next you have, if you've sent out your quote and if your project has been confirmed yet, you also have an indication of that with an icon as well. And then of course your money symbol will be your invoicing financials. So if an invoice is overdue for invoicing, you will see that icon turn different colors to warn you that something needs to be done. And then of course your check mark here, this means that you may have tasks open. Of course, we've completed all of our tasks, so it is green, but again, you may see that turn a different color if your tasks are about to expire or overdue already. Now, like I said, these are kind of quick icons there that will give you an impression of your project. But of course, we can actually go inside the project and check some information. We're going to go ahead and create a new project so we can kind of see how that project progresses. And there's actually 3 ways that you can create a new project. The first way is by simply selecting an existing project, and you can go ahead and duplicate what you've done before. Nice and easy if you have a lot of repeat projects. Otherwise, you can go ahead and add a new project right here at the top right corner. And you can add either a blank project with no information, you'll start completely from scratch, or you can use a project template. Now, for those that haven't used project templates are a project that you've built once from scratch and saved that to be used later on. So for example, it could have an equipment list already, it could have a time schedule and crew functions. It can be as extensive or as basic as you'd like, but it allows you to quickly send out quotes later on. So say you got a phone call, you offer standard packages, you could have a project template of that package and you could go ahead and create a quote within a few seconds based on a project template. So it really speeds up that quoting process. Now with my project template here, I can see I do already have a time schedule. And what will happen is if we choose a new start date, so let's say we'll go for the beginning of September, the 4th, That new date will actually be set on the time schedule there. So it is just a template, and all the new details will be added once you add that new start date. And then of course your equipment is already here in the equipment groups as well. So let's take a look at our project template and let's see what's inside. All right, perfect. So now we have our project template. It has a name, so music festival, we'll be planning a music festival. You also have your project types here, and project types are really nice because it allows you to set default documents. So maybe for some types of events, you need a really extensive quote or terms and conditions. Otherwise, you could have ones for weddings, ones for conferences. So with those different types, you can make sure that the documents are going to match and that all the information you need to be included would be included. So that's a nice benefit of project types there. And then of course you have a project status now, and all new projects will always start off in concept. Once you have sent out a quotation, the project status will change to pending. And once the project has been confirmed by your customer and digitally signed, it will change to confirmed. Now, Rentman automates this process for you based on the actions you take in the project, but you can always manually change these yourself as well. And of course, the last three statuses, prepped, on location, and returned, this will be all changed in the warehouse when your crew actually pack out the equipment and bring it back. All right, let's go ahead and add a customer here to our project. We're going to add Wow Music. And with each project and with each customer in Rentman, you can also add special invoicing moments. So maybe you have some loyal VIP customers that you always let them invoice afterwards, but maybe you have new customers that you require upfront payment for. So you can set that up per customer. And then you can also add these automatic project warnings and also automatic notes to the project when a customer is added. So if there's anything specific, maybe they are a bad payer, you just want to make sure that you're tracking that on the customer level to cover your own site as well. All right, so we also have a location here from our project template. Let's go ahead and add a new location. So we're going to go ahead and add a theater that we will be doing, well, maybe not a theater. Yeah, we'll do Theater Beatrix. So when you actually add a location here to the project, Rentman can apply a rate that you set for your transport. So it will calculate the distance from your warehouse to the location in the project and apply that either kilometer or mile rate that you set, so that it's kind of an automated process and you don't have to calculate that manually. Perfect. All right. And then, of course, you also have your tasks, notes, and files on the project level as well. This one has come from our project template, so you can automate some tasks. But of course, you can add new tasks here. You can assign them to specific crew members or to everyone. And of course, make sure that those action items get taken care of. Notes are also a great way to communicate with different people involved with the project. When you add a new note, you will tell Rentman where to display the note. For example, you can display notes in the warehouse to the crew that are actually packing for the event if you need them to pack some specific things. You may also add them to the calendar so that the crew that are scheduled can see what they need to do. And you can also communicate with your customers and add notes on quotes, contracts, and even other documents. And then of course with your files, of course you can drag and drop any files here. By default, the financial files will automatically be saved here, but you can add anything else, maybe designs, special agreements, anything like that, you can add them. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the time schedule. So the time schedule is very important to understand. So I'm just going to take a moment to go through this in a little more detail. So you will, of course, set up your own preferred time schedule here with your own times set up and breakdown, that sort of thing. But there are always two core times that have to be in every project, and that is the usage period and the planning period. Now, Rentman uses the usage period to calculate your costs back to your customer. Usually this would just be the event times. This is also the times that your factors would be based on. So for example, if you have a rental for 3 days and you charge 2.5 days, the usage period of 3 days would automatically adjust your factors to the 2.5 days. The planning period on the other side is what Rentman uses to calculate your equipment availability. So from this point in time until this point in time, your equipment will be unavailable to be used on any other project. So I would definitely recommend setting that planning period from the moment that you take the equipment off the shelves to prep it until the moment it's back and cleaned and maintained and back on the shelves again to be used. And of course, I do recommend being as extensive as possible in your time schedule. As we all know in the events industry, times change rather rapidly. By using this extended time schedule, if something does change, so for example, let's say that our setup time changed and they said, oh, actually you need to come 2 hours later. If we were to now change that, Rentman is saying, hey, you actually have some tools associated with the setup time. Should we also edit the times? And I will say, yes, let's update the times there. So you can connect your equipment groups, your function groups, all to these times in the time schedule. So if anything changes, you actually change it here once, and it will change everywhere else it's used in link to. So that, like I said, you're not having to change that in a million places, just in this one place. All right, I think let's go ahead and take a quick question break in case there's any questions we should answer live before we move on to actually planning equipment and crew and transport. Lauren and Parker, do we have any questions that would be good to go through?
Not yet, Allison,
Right.
but I do have a fun fact if anybody's interested.
Of course, we love fun facts, Parker.
So at Rentman, we have 47 people working here from 10 countries.
Wow, actually, I didn't even think it was that many countries. It's cool to be part of such an international team.
It's very nice.
Yeah, thanks for that, Parker.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead and move on then. All right, so at this point in our project planning process, we're actually just planning the things that we need to send out a quote. So let's go ahead and we add our general information, of course, set our time schedule. We'll now add our equipment and our crew and transport functions, and then we can send out our quote. So let's take a quick look here at the equipment tab. And let's close our timeline for now so that we can have a better view. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice is that I already have an existing list of equipment, and that has come from the project template that I've used. However, if you are building a project from scratch, the first thing that you will do is add your equipment groups here with the Add Equipment Group button. The equipment groups are these gray bars here, and it's a nice way for you to attach equipment to certain times in the time schedule, but also simply to just categorize your equipment on a document or even in the warehouse. Now, once you have added your equipment groups, you'll find your entire inventory here from the side. And what you'll do is select each equipment group and go ahead and add the equipment that you need in that equipment group. And that's how you'll build up your quote and reserve your equipment for that. Now, you will also notice that I have some items marked here in red. It can be a little scary, but let's see if we can go ahead and solve some of these. So what this actually means is that these items are in short. So for example, I can actually take a look at my SD8 mixer here and open the timeline. And I can see actually, why am I short of this item? So it looks like that I own one equipment item, but let's see. During part of our project, it is going to be used on another confirmed project. So I do have that -1 availability. If this project moves forward, it just means I would have to subrent this one item or choose an alternative. Well, we know that subrenting actually, it can cost us more money than using our own inventory, of course. So let's see if we might have some alternatives available first. Again, you can click the details button next to each individual equipment item here to see some more information about that equipment item. You also have the pin sidebar option just to keep this open for you. If I now scroll down to the bottom, I will see a section called alternatives. What this means is that when I set up my equipment items, I set up accessories and I also set up alternatives so that when I am planning, I can quickly see what alternatives I have available and I can go ahead and click that alternative to add it, and then I can actually go ahead and delete my item that's in short. So what I've just done is actually solved my own shortage through my own stock and saved myself quite some money from actually subrenting that item. Now, we know that it's not always so easy to choose alternatives. You may not have that stock available, which is totally fine. So subrenting just may be the only option for you. In that case, there is 2 ways to subrent. So the first one is by selecting in the project, and you can go ahead and subrent your shortages directly. However, I really would only recommend this if you subrent occasionally. If you do find that you are subrenting quite often, what I would recommend doing is actually going to our subrent module and directly to the shortages tab. So this is our shortages tab, and let's go ahead and see what's coming for the next month. So I can see everything that will be a shortage, and I can go ahead and solve some of these shortages through subrenting. What makes Rentman a bit different than other software is that Rentman really goes into detail with the subrental. So when you actually add your equipment items, I would recommend using the subrental cost. What that means is that that's an estimation price that you will usually subrent as. Of course, when you actually create a subrent project, you will add the actual cost you're paying. But what Rentman will do is calculate these costs back to each individual project. So for example, if I select multiple projects, all of these equipment items are short across all of these projects, and I now subrent. Rentman will calculate the cost back to each individual project, so I can actually see how much did this project cost me, including subrenting from this project. All right, so now I'm creating a subrental project for those 3 different projects, and I can actually add more information here. So I can give my subrental project a name. I can also say where it's going to be delivered. It also has statuses just like a regular project. And then of course, you will also make sure that the time schedule, everything else is set. You will also add your supplier details here as well, and you can apply special discounts per supplier. So if you do get a special discount from a supplier, that can be added as well. And then of course, you'll make sure your equipment list is all good to go for this subrental order. And then if your supplier is another Rentman user, you can go ahead and send that directly to their Rentman account. Otherwise, no problem. It's just 2 extra clicks to go ahead and send that over. What you can do is go ahead and create a subrental slip. And once you generate that, then it will actually go ahead and give you the document here that you can email directly. So you can email this directly to your supplier there. All right, so that's subrenting. And we'll go ahead and head back to our main project. There we go, perfect. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is different ways that you can actually combine your equipment items. So for example, we have kits, cases, and accessories, which are different ways that you can combine those items. The first one would actually be a kit. So I can actually click on the contents of a kit and I can open to see what's actually inside of it. So this is a kit here, and all of the items inside sometimes get rented together and sometimes they get rented separately. So it is a flexible combination of items. On the other hand, we have here our amp rack, which is actually a case inside of a kit. So we can actually know that all of the items inside the amp rack will always come together. They will never come separately. So again, the case is not flexible and the kit is flexible with its contents. And of course, the last thing that you can add is accessories. So let's go ahead and add a speaker here. Let me make sure I'm adding the right one. Perfect. So let's go ahead and add that to our project. Now it does have some accessories. So Rentman is asking me at this point, hey, should we also add these accessories? So I will go ahead and add my speaker stand, but not my flybar, or not my yoke mount, sorry about that, but not my yoke mount. And so at this point it is optional. Now you can add your accessories to be mandatory, in which case Rentman will always add those accessories as soon as the item is added. But in this case, we have our speaker and we have our speaker stand. Okay, let's go ahead and give our project a save, and we're going to go ahead and move on to our crew and transport functions and get those added as well. Now, at this point, we do already have some filled out from our project template. So again, it makes it quite easy for you to send out that quote because information is already entered for you. But what you'll do is you'll add your function groups just like you did with your equipment groups. So those gray bars here, typically these would follow your time schedules. You have your setup group and your production day groups and your breakdown groups. And on the left-hand side here, this is where you'll find your crew and transport functions. So for example, we have a sound technician here. If we take a look inside the sound technician, we can see information included with this function. The purpose of functions is for you to be able to quote for the job without planning your crew members yet. So for a sound technician, you will estimate either an hourly rate or a fixed rate how much the sound technician would cost you. Once you actually plan these into the project, then of course those costs would get calculated. So we can see we need a system engineer, we need 3 technicians, and we can also see the costs associated with them. And all of this will be included on the quotation. All right. In a moment, we're going to go ahead and go through the financial, but I do want to take one quick break here just to see if there were any questions, Parker.
Right. So Bojan asked about the sorting of time schedules, and I just wanted to point out that by default they should be sorted chronologically, but you can also drag and drop them. And there was a bug earlier. I believe it's been fixed where they were not sorting chronologically, but if you're having some issues with that, please feel free to send an email to support@rentman.io and we'll definitely take a further look. And that's all we have.
All right, perfect. Yeah, exactly what Parker said. You can kind of drag and drop these and reorganize in your time schedule, but if you are experiencing anything funky, please just let us know. We will definitely take a look and see if we can solve some of those issues. All right, perfect. All right, so let's go through the financial page. The financial page definitely got a nice refresh from the old interface as well. So now at the top here, you have actually how much you've already invoiced for this project, so a quick indication there. And then you also have these nice kind of graphs or visual indication of the project, the profit that you're making at each step in your planning process. So I'm going to explain these 3 sections in more detail. So let's just take a look below. That here you'll find your estimated cost, your planned costs, and your actual costs. So your estimated cost, well, that's exactly what we just did. We estimated what our equipment would cost us and our crew. As I mentioned before, your rental equipment will also include the cost of expected sub-rentals, and that is based on the sub-rental cost in your equipment item. So it is important to use that if you are sub-renting. On the crew side, we estimated what a sound technician would cost us. And later on, we will actually plan individual people. And those will come through as planned costs. So for example, we estimated our sound technician role. Later on, we may plan Joe as a sound technician, and maybe Joe is a freelancer and his rate is slightly higher than what I anticipated. So you will see a difference there in planned costs. Once your crew actually work an event and come back, they can register their time in the time registration module, and those costs will come through as actual costs. So again, if your crew ended up working 2 hours longer than you anticipated, you will again see a difference there in actual costs. So Rentman will help you to make sure that you're quoting exactly, well, as close to exactly as what it would actually cost you as well. And then again, here at the top, you will see that profit. So for example, if you estimated slightly less, then you may see a less profit in your planned and actual costs. But okay, let's go ahead and create our quotation. So we'll add our quotation here from the top. And now we can actually go ahead up here to the top and generate our quotation. Here we will actually choose the type of quotation that we want to send. So we will choose the compact template. You can also choose from different types of letterhead. If you are running 2 companies within one business, for example, 1 weddings, 1 conferences, you could have different letterhead there as well. And then of course, within your advanced settings, you can give the file a name, choose if you want your kits or cases opened. So you can have a few extra settings here. And then we'll go ahead and generate this quote so we can see what it would look like when we actually send this document to our customer. Now you can actually see the document itself, which is a combination of the letterhead and the document template. All of this is fully customizable in the configuration module on the left-hand side. Of course, once you are happy with the look and feel of everything, you can email this directly to your customer. However, if you aren't quite happy with how this is being displayed, you could choose between different templates. You can always edit the layout once again. We can maybe for this time go for a more extended template because we want to include more information for our customer, and we'll go ahead and overwrite this quote. So with our extended template, of course, you can see here, this is actually going through a lot more detail on the individual equipment items, also shows the contents of the kit and cases and some specific pricing information. So the document template can show as much or as little as you would like. It's fully up to you. And then, of course, you can email this directly, as I said, to your customer. You'll add their email address, and also I recommend BCCing yourself as well. That way you can keep track of the messages you send out in your own inbox. And then, of course, you can add a nice message here in the email. You can use the template so that you're not writing an email from scratch every time. And then once you send this email out, your project status will change to pending, meaning that it is pending confirmation from your customer. And then when your customer receives this, they have the option to digitally sign the quotation. So let's go ahead and see what that process looks like. When they do go to the digital signing page, you can customize the background for them so that it keeps in line with your own branding. And then they can go ahead and just enter their information here and go ahead and confirm their quotation. Leave a lovely signature as well. Sometimes my signatures aren't so great. And they'll go ahead and accept. Once they accept, they can download their own signed agreement, and then you will also be immediately notified as soon as something is confirmed. If we now exit out of our quote here, you will actually see when we go to the general tab of our project, this has now been confirmed for us. Additionally, down below, you will also see in the file section that the quote we generated and also the signed version are now saved here. You can actually see the signed version of the quote and the IP address of your customer. So you can actually, that's automatically saved to the project for you and your records. Okay, let's go ahead and schedule some crew. So here in the crew scheduling tab, you will see our basic crew planner, but we're actually going to open our extended crew planner so that you can actually see exactly how this works. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in just a little bit here. And once you zoom in, of course, you can see your functions a little bit better. So I can see all of the crew functions that we quoted on our quote. And what I can do is select one of these functions, and you'll notice that the crew turn different colors on the side. And what this means is that they turn different colors based on their own availability. So anybody marked in green means yes, they are available. Anybody marked in red means no, they aren't available. And anybody marked in white means we just aren't sure, so we would need to invite them. To plan your crew, of course, you can directly double click, and I've planned Tom now as our engineer there. I could also say, okay, Tom, I want you to start a little earlier. I also want you to stay later. I also will move your planning this way, and then I'll move it this way. Now, the reason why I've just moved it so many times is because I want to explain that we don't send notifications when that happens. And the reason for that is I would have just quickly annoyed Tom by sending him 5 notifications in the space of 5 seconds. And if I'm playing around with the planning a lot, I think my crew would get pretty annoyed with me on that. So once you plan your crew member, it will be immediately visible on their schedule. So for example, if I now go to the schedule here, and if I check, I have already forgotten exactly who we planned there, Tom. So we're going to take a look quickly at Tom's schedule. And let's see what his schedule looks like as soon as I've planned him. All right, so if we actually go into September, we should see system engineer. So that immediately will be visible on his schedule. Now, as the planner, you can make some adjustments so that that gets a little bit hidden if you want to play around with the planning a bit more. So what you can actually do is click on Tom's planning, right click on that, and you can go ahead and switch the visibility. Let me zoom in a little more for you so you can see what that does. So now my function instead of green has turned orange, and Tom is a slightly lighter color blue there, and that just means it's invisible on his schedule, and it will stay invisible until you make it visible to him. So now I can play around as much as I want and he won't see those changes. Now, if you do want to inform your crew, you can always send the planning to them. So once you send the planning, of course, you can go ahead and choose the project that you want to do, also the crew members that you want to send the planning to. You can even preview the planning here to see what they would actually see, and then you can send this to them via email. So it's not only visible directly on their schedule, but you can also send them an email just so that you know they've seen it as well. All right, let's go ahead and select a different function here. So let's go for our light technician function. And what I want to do now is actually use our tags, which you can now find here, this little arrow. And when I select the tag, so I've got my light technician tag selected, I can go ahead and see only the crew that can work as a light technician. So tags are really useful if you want to categorize your crew on their skill level. You could categorize them on, light technician, sound technician, or even on driver's license level. That way you can plan the drivers that you need to. So it's completely up to you, and tags are fully customizable there. But let's go ahead and invite just our light technician crew members to see if they could potentially work. I know Brian and Jerry are marked in red, but I just want to see if maybe they could make an exception and work this time. So let's go ahead and invite them. When you send an invitation, you'll go ahead and also choose the type of invitation you want to send. So the first one is you're requesting their availability. Are you available, yes or no? The second invitation will directly plan them on a function, but it may not it may not visually show them yet on their schedule, or it will visually show them on their schedule. If you invisibly plan someone, it will not show on their schedule. So you can invisibly plan or visibly plan. Of course, you also want to choose a due date. So before the start of the event, you need an answer by. You'll go ahead and enter that as well. And then, of course, you can also add additional crew members if you need to, but you can attach a nice message here. You can also use default templates here for the messaging so that you're not having to type an email every time to your crew. And then, of course, you can go ahead and send these invitations out. Now, once you do send those invitations, you will see the invitations come here in the invitation section. And of course, you will also be notified once those invitations are answered. So here at the top next to your name, you will see the notifications. You can set up your notifications by clicking on this little gear icon, and you can change the settings. So of course, when your crew receive an invitation, they can receive that via email, mobile app, and web. And then when your crew reply, you can also receive that via email, mobile app, and web, so that everybody is informed of when they need to work and when replies happen. Okay. Lastly, I just want to show you also, just like with your equipment, you do have a timeline of availability here with your crew. So you can see all of the projects everybody's working on. You can also see their availability in the background, so the red and green. And then as the crew planner, you can also manage availability for the crew if you'd like. So you can bulk mark crew members as available or not available. Maybe there's a company outing in the afternoon one day, and you want to go ahead and mark people as unavailable. You could do that as well. Okay, let's take a brief break, see if there are any questions on the crew planning side, and then we'll just move on to warehousing and financials.
Alrighty, while we wait for the questions to come in, I've got another fun fact for us.
Yes.
So from Jamaica to the Faroe Islands, there are about 50,000 users currently using Rentman. That includes power users, crew members, and coincidentally, 50,000 is also the population of the Faroe Islands. So there is,
wow.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Parker, I wish I was with our users in Jamaica right about now. Sure beats
that.
rainy Utrecht.
It is indeed a blustery day in
Indeed.
August.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that, Parker. That's actually super interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. All right. Well, guys, if you do have questions, feel free to put them there in the Q&A. But otherwise, we will go ahead and move on for now. But we can take a break and just in case any questions come up. Okay, so we have now planned our project. We, added the equipment, the crew that we needed, and now it's time for the event to actually go out, and that will actually be done here in the warehouse. So here in the warehouse, of course, you will see an overview of your transports and crew. At the moment, we are looking at the date of August 28th, so I don't really have anything going on in the warehouse at that time. However, if I were to go ahead and choose the first Friday of September, we have projects ready to go. So just keep in mind that your projects will come here in the warehouse once they're confirmed and at the start of the planning period. So we said that our music festival would start at the beginning of the planning period on the 4th. So we would see that there on the 4th in the warehouse. Now, there's two ways that we can start booking this project out. We can do that here on the desktop by clicking book and start booking our equipment. Or we can open the Rentman mobile app on our iPhone or Android device, and we can go ahead and scan this QR code there in the warehouse, and this project will be opened up in our app, and we can start scanning right there on our phone. For the demo, I will show you how to actually book here on the desktop, but it's the exact same process on the mobile device. The nice thing about the mobile device is that you don't need dedicated scanning functionalities. You can simply use your iPhone or Android camera and go ahead and scan your QR code or barcode. So let's book our equipment out. So here is basically your digital packing list. So for those of you that are working on the paper packing list, the benefit of this is that this screen will always be updated. If something is broken and an alternative needs to be chosen, it will be automatically updated on this. But if you are using that paper packing slip, you may need to kind of reprint that a few times if you are making changes. But of course, what we can do is we can go ahead and start booking out manually if you aren't scanning. If you are scanning, you would go ahead and start scanning these items out, and they would automatically move over here with the serial number attached there to each item. If you are packing and maybe something is just not available, it was broken and it can't be used, you also have the option to go ahead and choose an alternative. And I was just looking for a nice alternative to choose, but let's go ahead for our SD10 mixer there. So we can go ahead and plan an alternative. And when you plan an alternative, you will go ahead and type in the name that you need and go ahead and select the item as an alternative and enter a quantity, and then it'll book the alternative. Now, Rentman automatically has changed this now. So like I said, this is your digital packing slip and it is updated in real time. You also have the option to go ahead and choose additional equipment items. So let's say that the customer, you've already started packing in the warehouse, the customer called frantically and was like, we need 5 more microphones. We cannot live without them. In that case, your warehouse technicians can go ahead and enter this additional equipment here. And let's go ahead and add 5 more microphones. Now, at this point, your warehouse crew can fully add additional, it's up to you and what you allow them to do in their user roles, but you can also make sure to include any additional equipment in the price calculation so that it gets included on the invoice afterwards. So let's go ahead and enter the equipment, and that will show down here at the bottom under your additional equipment group. Of course, you'll continue to go through and scan everything over. Once you have scanned or booked everything over, it will look something like this. And then, of course, you can change the project status. Now, I have chosen to send my equipment directly to on location, but you can also choose to prep that first. It's completely up to you. But now we will go ahead and change our status to on location and save. So now when we go back to our warehouse screen, our project will now be on location until the end of the planning period. Now, if the equipment does not get brought back by the end of the planning period, you do need to tell Rentman when you expect them back. It's okay if half of the equipment comes back early and maybe half is late, but you will need to let Rentman know when you expect it back, and Rentman will go ahead and edit the availability of those options. Now, when you are booking everything back and when you need to allow for delayed items, it's the same exact process. You will go ahead and click book here. And then, of course, instead of adding, alternative items, you also have the option, let's do this one. You also have the option to mark things as defective or as lost. So when you're actually bringing stuff back, you're going to evaluate for those damages or lost items. If something is broken, let's find something nice to break here. Let's see. We'll go ahead and go for one of our microphones. Maybe somebody did a mic drop that was a little too aggressive. So let's go ahead and report this as defective. We can choose the serial number if this item was serialized. We'll also tell Rentman if the item cannot be used or if it can still be used. And then you can also choose to charge the cost back to your customer or not. If so, this will be included on the invoice later on. Of course, you can leave remarks here, and as soon as you mark it as defective, a repair is being set up in the maintenance module here. And of course, the item will be brought back and the charges added to the invoice. So of course, you would continue to go ahead and evaluate your items if anything is broken or damaged. Let's say everything was brought back in perfect condition. But what you'll notice is that even though I returned everything, I returned all my rental items, I still have some items here on the side. And that is because they are sale items. So when you are working with consumables or sales items with Rentman, you will go ahead and let Rentman know how much stock has actually come back from this. So for example, you can book the amount of stock that comes back. When you book it back, it will be added to your stock level of that sales item. Otherwise, if you've used all these items, please leave them here on location because they were consumed on location, so they won't be added back into the stock. I hope that's clear. All right, let's go ahead and click done here. And so now our project is, whoop, hold on. We're going to change our status first. All right, let's return our project, and now we can save that, and now we can go ahead and see that our project is no longer on location. And if we go back to the projects list here, it will actually be marked as returned there. So we're all set with our project. Now what we can do is actually, we did have some extra costs there that got added, so we can actually go ahead and send out an invoice, and that would actually be done here under the financial tab. So in the old look, it was named invoices, but now you see financial. You'll see your invoices tab and your to be invoices tab here under the financial section. Now, the invoices tab is all the invoices that you have already generated, but what we want to look at is our to be invoiced tab. This will give you an overview of the invoices that need to be created by the date that you select. So I was looking at today, but let's go by next month and see what we have there. Perfect. So here's our music festival that we were working on, invoice afterwards. What we can do is actually select this and go ahead and create our invoice directly here. Of course, like I showed you a little bit earlier with the quote, you can set some special settings here, like the date, payment term, that sort of thing. You also have the option to choose the percentage of invoice that you are invoicing. At this point, it was 100%, but you could have situations where you invoice 50% before and 50% after. So you can actually say, okay, I want to invoice for 50% of the total. So you can create invoices for that as well. But for this, we're going to do 100%. You can also add custom invoice lines, and you can also subtract other invoices that may be already paid for this. And once you're happy with everything, you can, hold on just a second. Now we can generate. So at this point, you can also choose the type of invoice that you would like to send. We do have two templates here in the system. We have a one-line template that just says, pay us for the services on this date and time, and here's the amount. Or you could have the extended invoice that really breaks down on item level. So we can go ahead and generate that extended invoice here. And now we can see our invoice template. It's the same exact process with the quotes as well. All of our documents are fully customizable, so you can add and subtract information here from the document template itself. That would all be done in the configuration module. You can also make sure that your letterhead and company branding are all set to go. But like I said, this extended invoice goes through a lot more detail. It also includes the additional equipment group that we added there in the warehouse last minute. And then it also includes down here below, all the way at the bottom, the hotel stay that we had an additional cost of, and also our damaged microphone is there as well. So it could be that if you have some of those extra costs, you might want to show them as line items. But anyways, you can also include a payment link here. So we do have an integration with Stripe. So through Stripe, you can also take payments on your invoices directly, and your customers can pay online. But otherwise, you can go ahead and email this directly to your customer right here in the software. You can, of course, add the information. I do recommend BCCing yourself as well. That way you can track what you're sending out in your own inbox. And then, of course, you can add a nice message here. You can even use these message templates as well. These message templates as well, just to save time from writing emails every time you send out an invoice. And then once you send out your invoice, that will actually be shown in the invoices tab. So these are where all of your invoices that you've already created. So we can see our music festival one there. If you are using Stripe, then Stripe will update once this invoice has been paid. If not, you can manually mark this as paid actually here in the software. Now, if you are using an accounting software such as QuickBooks or Xero or other accounting software, there are some options for you. With QuickBooks and Xero, you can go ahead and directly connect your account to Rentman, and you will choose the day or the days of the week you want Rentman to automatically sync your invoices. So these invoices that are already created will sync on the days that you choose at about 4 o'clock in the morning, your local time. And then, of course, those will be synced into your accounting software. If you're using another accounting software besides Xero and QuickBooks, what you can do is you can select the invoices and you can go ahead and export your invoices. Once you export them, it will export them on ledger code level, and it will break that down in revenue category, and you can import that into most accounting softwares from there. All right. I think we have come to the end of our kind of introduction to Rentman today. So we together created a project and took that project through its life cycle, and then we invoiced here in the end. So I do want to open this up for any and all questions. Bring it on. We're happy to help. If there's anything we need to clarify or show you around a little bit, please let us know. We're here to help.
Thanks for that, Chris. Appreciate the compliment. Gemma Copley is wondering if we can still use the old interface.
So yes, yes and no. If you are an existing customer of ours, then yes, you can switch back and forth for a time period that is Parker, I'm struggling a little bit here. We don't have a time that we will officially switch. So for the foreseeable future, you can switch back and forth. Of course, we will let you know when we plan on navigating fully to the improved interface, so that you have plenty of time to make sure that you're fully ready for that switch. And then, of course, I'm not sure, I can't see if you're a customer already. You could be a lead, and all new trials created from today onwards will be in the new interface, so they won't be able to switch back to the old interface. So it just depends on what kind of user you are at the moment.
Nice. And I'd just like to add how they can switch back in case they're wondering.
Oh yeah, that's important. So you actually can switch back by clicking on your name here at the top. Oh, hold on, my Zoom picture. When you click on your name here at the top, you will, I created my trial today and that's probably not why, but you will see a little button here at the bottom that says return to the old interface. So that will be here under your name and you can return back and forth for the foreseeable future. All right, guys, we'll leave things open for another two or so minutes just for any last minute questions.
Chris is asking if there are any major updates to the app with the new interface. And The answer is nothing special. So the new interface is totally concerned with Rentman web, the web version. The app is continuing to be updated, but there will be no new interface for the app for the foreseeable future, at least.
I will, just to build on what Parker said, I do recommend signing up for the other webinars in the series if you haven't. Today was just kind of an overall view of the look and feel, and then of course they'll go into more details. For example, maybe in the documents one, the style guide will get mentioned, which is a bit of a new feature with Rentman and the improved interface. So I do recommend, if you can, at least watch the recordings of those, because it'll go a bit deeper. All right, guys, I think we will go ahead and end things here. I really appreciate everybody joining us today and asking some great questions as well. This recording will be available on the blog about 24 hours after. We'll send you an email as well with that link to the blog. If we can help with anything, if there's anything that you need more clarity on or you have questions, please reach out to support@rentman.io. We are always happy to help. And I wish you all a great rest of the day, and we'll see you again for the next few webinars. Bye.